Hey everyone, this is Grady at SUBOVERLAND, and in this video I'll be going over the top 10 things to fix on your Chevy Suburban before you go overlanding. Let's get right into it. So this is going to be an informational video, and I have the top 10 things that you need to fix or maintain or add before you take your Suburban on an off-road trip. These aren't in any particular order, but I'll start at the first one I had. Tires. Tires are super important. You've heard me talk about tires before, and tons of other people have talked about tires, I'm sure, but tires are very important. A 10-ply tire is the only way to go, in my opinion, especially on these Suburbans after they get all the weight. So a 10-ply tire, and we do a mountain snowflake rated tire, which means that it's better in the snow and with an aggressive design. So we do an all-terrain tire. Some others like doing an RT or an MT if you really want to be super aggressive, but a good AT, an all-terrain tire, 10-ply, is one of the best upgrades you can do. As far as sizing goes, it's going to depend on what suspension you have on, but we go up a size. So we have an oversized tire, so we go from like a 31 to a 33. So usually about 1 to 2 inches taller than stock is a good way to go if you add a little lift. You can just stick with stock size tire too, but make sure you have a good 10-ply. The second one I have is suspension. So suspension can come in all different forms, and when I say suspension, we're going to talk about either leaf springs or coils, and then your shocks, and then any steering component or ball joint, anything like that. So I'm putting that kind of all in here. Obviously very important if you're going to be doing off-roading or off the beaten path. You want your vehicle to perform, not only perform, but not break. You don't want to break down or some suspension component that's broken when you're way out there in the boonies. So with that, I would do new coils, and like on most of our Suburbans, they're rear coiled. So new coil springs in the back, shocks, and then depending on what your front suspension is, you can, if it's coils, you can replace the coils. Shocks, obviously that, there's torsion bar suspensions that, you don't have to replace any sort of hard component other than the key to make it the angle, so you can achieve that lift. But I'm not getting into crazy details on suspensions. People can go all out. You can do full-blown coilover. Some of these brands you may have heard of are like Fox or King or something like that. And those are gonna like dampen your ride and make you have a better ride. But we usually just go with a Bilstein shock, and the 5100 series is what we stick with. It's a fantastic shock. Obviously the ride's a lot better than stock, but it's not going to perform like as well as some of these crazy setups that you see. Like a full-blown coilover or anything like that with more drop, with more suspension travel. So I don't think that's personally, I don't think that's necessary. I think if you get a really good high quality shock and some new suspension components like the coils, that's a great baseline. And then from there, go with steering components. So you can just check your stock steering components and see if there's play, and go from there. Or you could decide to replace everything. It's kind of up to you. Here at SUBOVERLAND, it's a case-by-case basis. From the factory and throughout the years, we always, we'll check each vehicle and see what's going on there, And if there's play in a ball joint or a tie rod end or a pitman arm or whatever, then we replace it accordingly. So I would say that is the next thing you should do, suspension. The next one I have on the list is check engine lights. So every vehicle, well, I mean, not every vehicle. So about, oh man, it really just depends on what year, but in the 80s, and even in the 70s, you see some sophisticated cars starting to get warning lights when they went to digital and things like that, or even pre-digital. Anyway, warning lights on the car started coming up. And those are obviously, you got to check what's going on there. A lot of times, and most of the time, honestly, they are not mission critical, meaning that you're not going to break down. But on the rare occasion where it is something that really, really needs addressed, then you should address that before your trip, not during the trip. Trust me, know from experience. I've bought a lot of cars over the years, and ones that I didn't necessarily take the time and drive them enough before I took a big trip, and then a check engine light popped up or whatever, and it was a mission critical. Then anyway, stuff happens, but you're going to want to get to know your vehicle as much as possible, and some of that is through fixing it. So a check engine light, most check engine lights you see on vehicles are going to be emissions related for these newer ones, and that for the most part you're fine, and it's up to you to choose to fix that or not. Obviously at SUBOVERLAND, it's a business. I'm selling these vehicles to clients, and so my standard is maybe above, it's above the regular Joe Schmo or even my personal vehicles. My personal vehicles that I run around with may or may not have check engine lights that I don't care about. But when I pass it off to a client, no check engine lights. So that's up to you to decide. But as far as check engine light, not all of them are created equal. Again, emissions related ones, a lot of times, they're not super important. It just really depends on what it is. Some other ones where there'll be indicators of, oil, right? So if you have like a low oil warning, that's another warning light you could have. Obviously, you should check that one out. Low oil pressure, obviously, that one's more mission critical than like a catalytic converter code or a evap leak. So that just really depends. And if you don't understand at all what I'm talking about, that's fine. You can get your own scanner, scan the vehicle, check it out, do a quick Google search. And then you could also call up a local shop or whatever, and that can help you get to know your vehicle. So figure out check engine or warning lights before your trip. Next one we'll talk about are fluids. So the fluids of the vehicle. So most vehicles will have, four-wheel drive vehicles, they'll have a front differential, transfer case, rear differential, transmission, engine oil, brake fluid, coolant. What am I missing here, guys? I think I got it all. So all of those fluids are included when I say just fluids for the vehicle. And those are all obviously very important. And two reasons they're important: you have to have the level, so the level of them are important, but also how clean they are, or if they have any impurities in them. Now, over time, some fluids are changed out less than others, and so they don't need to be changed out as much, but just know the intervals. We do a 3,000 mile interval for engine oil. We do a 30,000 mile interval for transmission, transfer case, differentials. And that, I could say, that's about the same for fluid and coolant also. And it's really a case-by-case basis on what fluid to change. If it looks good, if it's not broke, don't fix it type of thing on a lot of these. But when I buy a vehicle, I always like to get a good baseline. And so regardless of what's gone on in the past, I'll just change the fluid and get a baseline. And then stick with those intervals for the fluids. So that is fluid. And when you're on your trip, I always take extra fluid around. Again, this is with getting to know your vehicle. Maybe there's a leak, maybe it's using oil, maybe something pops up and it's an active leak, and then you're really in trouble. But again, that just depends. But it's always good to have, I at least carry around like a quart of oil during like big road trips, and I check it pretty regularly. And so yeah, fluids. Next one we'll go over for top 10 things to do on your Suburban is a test trip. So I really, here we drive each of these vehicles a couple hundred miles and take them through different terrains, different types of driving. You'll notice if you're just driving in town, for example, you start up your vehicle and you're going to the grocery store. That is getting your vehicle into more cycles. And the more cycles your vehicles, I'm saying like ignition cycles. The more cycles you go through, the better chance that you're going to pick up on a check engine light rather than just hop in the car and drive 500 miles on the highway. And so the more cycles, the better. But you also need to get some good highway driving into that. That will warm up your transmission into operating temps. And at that point, you'll be able to see if you have any transmission problems. It'll also see if you have any cooling problems. So when you get up to operating temp, is it holding the temperature? When you're idling in traffic, is it struggling a little bit? There's all of these things just with a big test drive. And so before you go on a trip, I would say before the maiden voyage, go on little day trips or just using it as your daily driver for a while. Along with our fluids, we do a tune-up. This is number 6. So the tune-up, we do a spark plug, wire, fuel filter, air cleaner, clean out the mass airflow, and the throttle body clean. So that's like a basic tune-up. And you could also run some additives through the engine oil, or sorry, not the engine oil, the gas, and like a sea foam or some other additive. You could do that too to kind of clear things up so you get a good baseline again. But the tune-up is important. I will say spark plugs nowadays last a lot longer than they used to. And so these newer vehicles, if you get a good iridium plug, 100,000 mile intervals. And honestly, a lot of these vehicles that I work on, they're up, they're getting up to 200,000 or more, some of them. And they're on original plugs, and they have no misfires, no check engine light related to anything with spark plugs. And so it is important, and I always do it on my vehicles, but that could also be a case-by-case basis depending on how much money you have and things like that. But a good solid tune-up, definitely you should try to do that. Next one on the list, number 7, is our HVAC system. So heating and air conditioning. Yes, heating and air conditioning are important depending on, your tolerances and things like that. But in the heat of the summer, I like having AC. Call me spoiled, call me crazy, but having AC is nice. In the winter, when you go out to the car, it's nice to have a heater. And GM heaters are fantastic. So it's nice to have those in tip-top shape. So I would check all of those controls. And also with these like blend door actuators and things like that could be faulty where it doesn't go to defrost maybe. And so you're dangerous at that point. If you need to defrost your windows on your trip and all of those basic things. So that's just a basic, HVAC system. So got to check that. Number 8, seats. You're going to be sitting in this vehicle and inside this vehicle for many hours, usually on a lot of these trips that you're going to be taking. And it's nice to have a good seat. So a good thing to do is if it's like ripped up or torn up or the cushion is flattened and you're sitting on metal, you're going to want to get that taken care of before your trip. I know it sounds obvious, but you'd be shocked at how many people and how many Suburbans I buy, and they've just been sitting on, a flattened out seat and that's all torn up for who knows how long. So we here at SUBOVERLAND, of course, we for the interior stuff, we get it going where replace the leather and the cushion and get that taken care of. Now, with that, with the seats, I just went over that. But number 9, I'm going to say smells. So if you just purchased a vehicle and it's a used vehicle, sometimes, it might have a smell or a scent that, it's not yours. It's not your vehicle yet. And you might have to take care of something like that. Let's say they spilled some food in the past and it kind of has, maybe like a McDonald's smell or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of different smells that could be in a car. I like to use an ozone machine on these vehicles. And not that I'm not buying vehicles that are like thrashed or disgusting or anything like that. Normally special projects, sure, but for the large majority, I'm not having to deal with like horrific smells or anything, just to say that. But if you do end up with a vehicle with an unpleasant odor, I would get an ozone machine, stick it in there, and do a good detail of the car, obviously. But that's definitely something you should put on your list before you go on a trip, because if you're in this thing forever, it can get old quick when you have a bad odor in your car. While I was going over some of the mechanical stuff, I forgot to mention brakes. So number 10, brakes. Now, brakes obviously are very important, vital thing for the vehicle. Most vehicles, Toyota just a couple years ago, they finally got rid of their drum brakes for their Tacomas and stuff. But I think most vehicles nowadays are going to be disc brakes. So you'll be front and rear disc. And so to check those, again, test drive. And you need to get it going fast. Step on their brakes pretty hard. If you have some pulsation, you don't want to deal with that during your trip. It's annoying. It can be unsafe depending on the degree. And so I'm always getting a baseline for brakes too. And if that's the case, if they're, pulsating and causing your pedal to, go up and down and things like that, then you're going to replace the rotors and the pads. And so you're going to check your pad and see if it's, new or not, and then replace, brakes. And with the brakes, if they are bad enough, you need, bleed them out potentially, things like that. But brakes are vital and definitely need to be checked before your trip here. So that rounds out the list of the 10 things you should check out. Of course, I missed some things. Wipers. I'm not going to go over everything, but, just have common sense with what you're going to be checking out. But if there's a blatant one that I missed out on, let me know in the comments below. What do you guys like to do before you take your vehicle on its maiden voyage? I would like to hear some tips or tricks that you've learned over the years. But thanks for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. It really helps out when you subscribe, so go ahead and do that if you haven't already. And if you ever need anything as far as questions answered, or you're interested in getting a vehicle from us here at SUBOVERLAND, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat, and we'll catch you on the next video.